Now, as you could see in the previous talk from Rolf, the whole process of CMS selection and what platform suits your needs, we've gone through all of those steps, and we ended up with Magnolia. So we went live with our digital platform running on Magnolia in April this year. But really, before we get into the CMS stuff, I would like to talk about football, because I work for Voetbal International. It's a company of about 50 people, and all we do is football, no other sports. So we talk about it, we write about it, we make videos about it, we dream about it. It's all we do. That's why it's a very fitting quote to us. And it's not just us as a company, it's the country as a whole. So we really like football. We used to be very good at it too. The country, I figured I'll just say it before I get grilled about it later. So Holland has about 17 million people, and about 1.2 million of them play football every single weekend. So they're registered with a club or with an association, and for them it's a big part of their life, just to show how big it is in the country. After England and Germany, we have the highest stadium attendance relative to the population in all of Europe. So we don't only play it, but we also go and see it. And I like this statistic about the World Cup in 2010. 12.5 million people watched it from their TV. So that's pretty much the entire nation watching it, dressed up in orange. The picture is from Amsterdam. About 800,000 people came to Amsterdam to cheer the people or the team that came back. We lost the final, but we paraded them through the canal anyway because it was a good party. Yeah, we're not doing so well. We got trashed by France. We were eliminated for the World Cup. We didn't play in the last Euro Cup. So that's pretty bad, unfortunately. Although there is some signs of hope. The women's team has finally taken the title away from the Germans. Germany having won the last 6 major football tournaments for women. And this year, hosted in the Netherlands, our women won, and it was awesome. Okay, a little bit about Voetbal International. We are an old company. We were founded in 1965 by a bunch of people who realized that the country is crazy about football. They are even willing to spend money on a magazine, which was the first at the time. And so they did. This is the first cover from then. And the mission has been to help people talk about football on a higher level. And I think I can explain that best using an example from my colleague. He explains it like, for example, you go to a museum and you see a painting, something very different, and you can like the painting, you can think the colors are nice, or you can think it looks good, but you're not really sure what's going on. Like, what techniques are used, what is the paint that is used, why was it hard, what's going on? Or you don't know anything about the person who painted it. Was it someone who did it for money? Was it someone escaping their troubled mind? Or whatever motivations they had to make it. But if there's somebody standing next to you and explaining everything that's going on with that piece of art and the person behind it, suddenly it becomes more alive, and you know what you need to look at, and you grow a bond with it. And the same really applies to football, because not that many people can look at a game and really understand all the subtle tactics going on. Or why people are playing for which motivations. But if someone explains it to you, it means you look at the game very differently. And that was our mission back then. And I think it's pretty cool to say that it's still our mission today, except the world has changed a lot. So back then, we were the only ones doing it. There were no other magazines. There were the newspapers, sure. These days, there's football websites and magazines everywhere. And our role has kind of changed from being the only one to trying to create some order in the overflow of media. But the world has also changed in another way, and this is the sad reality of print. And you see that we have tried to do some digital subscription stuff. It's this little speck here at the bottom, which is in no way enough to secure the 52-year legacy and continue into the future, unless we change something here. So we did have a digital platform. We've had it since '99, so we were quite early. It's a big platform. It has about 4 million page views a day. It's one of the largest social networks. We were one of the first with an iPhone app that provided push notifications for scores and so on. But we were not able to really leverage that whole platform, that huge platform, to get digital subscribers, which is ultimately where we wanted to go. So we decided to do something about it, and everything had to change. So we decided this last year. So as you can tell from the subscription slide, things are pretty rough for us. We really have to do something to change. So we decided to change the entire digital platform and redo everything, from the design to the technology, the CMS, the apps. Everything has been redesigned and rebuilt. And Magnolia has been at the core of it. Now, why did we choose Magnolia? So this is, in a very short amount of time, our process of thinking. First of all, we couldn't find a perfect CMS for publishers at all. We tried, we found some, but they weren't developer friendly, or there was all kinds of other reasons why they weren't suitable for us. So that was off the board. And then the next best thing we could find was a CMS that's very flexible and easy to customize, so that we can modify the editorial workflow to how we want it to be, and just build it ourselves. There was one thing though, when we got the first proof of concept and the demo of Magnolia, we were really excited about it, except for the fact that our editors, who are writing these big stories about all kinds of subjects, had to write their stories in this tiny input field. That wasn't going to work for us or any editor. But Magnolia promised a better content editor, which has now been released. It's the Stories app, which you'll see later on being used in practice. So for the new platform, I'm going to zoom in specifically on the subscriptions, otherwise we'd be here all day. And for the subscription part, the strategy consists out of 4 points. One, the whole platform is a funnel towards the digital subscription. So before we had a small page, and on that page was some premium content, and people would often not even go there and not even know it existed. So we wanted to make sure the whole platform became a funnel. Secondly, we wanted people to try it, because people are reluctant to pay for content online. They always have been, and Dutch people are especially critical of how they spend their money. So they had to be able to try it for free first. Personalization is a thing. It's a topic for almost everybody. For us, we have some small use cases for it, but definitely very valuable, because tailoring content to people's favorite clubs and competitions is very important, with all the club rivalry going on. And we wanted to measure everything. So the first, everything is part of the funnel. That includes literally the whole platform. So not only the homepage, which is still very important for us as an entrance into the content, but also push notifications, newsletters, the social media channels, and currently we're working on adding external parties. So we're kind of syndicating our content to everybody who really wants to have it and to use it. And everything leads to VI Pro. So VI Pro is the name of our digital subscription. And everything ultimately needs to lead users there. This is a picture of our website and our homepage. And you can tell there's a couple of articles on there labeled Pro. So at first we were a little bit nervous about pushing premium paid content to our users, because when people can't access something which is being shoved in their face, they don't like it. So first we wanted to make sure that it was always visible, but people also knew it was pro content, and therefore they would eventually run into a paywall. In Magnolia it looks like this. This is an environment we built where the editors can curate the homepage on the app and on the website. It looks like a very simple list, and it is, and the editors can drag and drop content around to make sure that every single article on the homepage has a very specific space for it. So we can make sure that the pro content, which for example gives more information about some news, are positioned right next to each other. And I heard that Rasmus from Magnolia was kind of inspired by this also, and there are some talks about building a curation app in the product itself. Probably it's going to look a lot better than this, but it was nice to hear. Second, try before you buy. So this is our paywall, or in this case it's a read for free wall. And essentially what we see is that people move into an article, They can read a bit of text, they are confronted with a paywall, they can register, and then they can read it for free. Because we give everybody with an account 5 articles for free. So you make an account, then you can read your 5 articles, and then on the 1st of each month it resets, and you can read 5 new ones. And what we see, which is really cool, is that people log in with Facebook a lot these days. They didn't before, but now people are used to it. About 80 to 85% of our users, they log in with Facebook. So what happens is they read an article, they click the read free button, log in with Facebook, and within 2 clicks they're back where they were reading our content. And this paywall, there's more to it, and this is where the Stories app really comes in, because you see on the picture the interface of the Stories app, and within that you can make certain blocks. So text is obviously a block, but as a developer you can very easily define your own blocks and attach certain logic to it. So what we did was we made a paywall block, which means that we can move it exactly where we want it. Now it seems very simple, but it opens up really a lot of possibilities for the editors to write a story towards a specific cliffhanger moment, and that's exactly where they put the paywall. Or for example, certain interviews, they start out a bit mellow and they're asking the player like, how are you doing? And it's not super interesting until later on. And then we found if we put the paywall so high that nobody even reads the boring starter questions, they'll just continue reading. That's how we can kind of play around with where we put the paywall and how people are going to convert to at least making an account. Then personalization is a topic for us, of course, for everybody. And I have to say it's not personalized to every individual, but more like the segments. So if you register with Facebook and we see that you're a fan of a certain club, we're going to push content from that specific club to you in the form of notifications. So these are going to pop up if we know that you're interested in that content. Lastly, we measure everything. This is a dashboard that is, it's real time, it's on the editorial floor, it's on the marketing department. Everybody's looking at this the whole day because it shows how the content is performing. It shows what articles are people registering for, what articles are being read, what articles are people actually subscribing for. And by looking at this, we can see if something is performing. And if it's not, we can replace it using all the tools I showed before with the Curation app and the paywall. We can change the paywall location and see if it makes a difference. We can change the articles around on the homepage and see if it makes a difference. So it's basically using those tools and this dashboard. It's like a daily game almost of making sure that everything performs as good as possible. Now for some results. This is a list or a chart of how many people have been registering to read those free articles since going live. So we've been live for a couple of months now, and you can see that there's not a lot of signs of slowing down, and I think at the moment we're at something like 80 or 90,000 new accounts registered just to read the pro content for free. And it gets more interesting in this chart, which needs some explanation. This is the number of people who are at their limit of 5 free articles in a month. So you can see that it resets, like every 1st of the month it's going to reset, and then it starts building up again. So the more people that have an account and can read the free articles, the more people we have in potential to reach their cap. And then if you combine that with the personalized notifications, we're trying to push people towards their limit of 5 as quickly as possible. And once that is done, we're going to push them with even more relevant content so that they don't have another choice but to subscribe, obviously. Just throw all the good content at them and make them want it. Now, the most important slide is it working? Because when we went live, we did a similar story like this in DX Day Amsterdam, which was a couple weeks after going live, and everybody was still getting used to the product and getting into their 5-article flow. And we didn't have almost any new subscriptions at that time, like paid subscriptions. So it was very promising, but we couldn't show any results. Luckily, now we can. This is a chart of all of our digital subscriptions ever. So we started in 2014, and you can see it went okay, but it stagnated using the old platform. This little flat line here is just after going live, when people had to get used to the new platform and just get used to the new design. And then you see it started going up, and it's still speeding up. And now we're at something like 3,600, 3,700 subscribers. So it's looking really good. And it's we're actually one of the few publishers who are managing to grow their subscriptions at this rate. Thank you. So we're not done yet. We're not compensating for the loss in print revenue by any means. And, well, I'm going to just say this. First of all, Robin quit. We got eliminated for the World Cup, and Robin called it quits. So now we need to find a new player as good as him, which is going to provide a lot of challenge. Anyway, so we have to keep the platform running for one. It sounds simple, but we have to deal with a lot of traffic. So when we send out a push notification for breaking news, it can happen that there's a flood of 40 to 50,000 people flooding into the platform in literally 10, 15 seconds. And that brings a lot of challenges. Yeah, it's been an ongoing process. Now we're really stable, so we're happy with that. But the goal is, of course, to grow the traffic, so the demands are going to get even higher. The goal for the end of the year is 5,000 subscribers. It's going to be a challenge, but we're on track right now, so that's looking pretty good. We want to personalize further. So this is, again, really where Magnolia is really good because of the way it saves the content. It's very structured. And what we want to do is to automate the indexing of all the content, because we tag it with what club and player and so on it's about. And then we can combine the user statistics and data, like what is their behavior, what are their interests, together with what content do we have and how is it tagged. And we bring that together, and we can bring super relevant, personalized content to everybody. So that's going to be a challenge moving forward. And more syndication. So it's a myth to think that our platform, like we have a luxury that people come to our platform, but everybody wants a piece of that pie, with Google and everybody, Facebook, trying to gain control over the publication of content. So we want to make sure that we're also going onto the market with our content and making deals with third parties and everybody, just to provide them with our content and make sure we get something out of it, as in new subscriptions. That's regarding the challenges. We did all this together with info.nl. So we took their team of 8 people and my team of 4. We shoved them together, and we rebuilt the whole platform. And now we're going to focus on these challenges moving forward. And we like info, not just because we did a good job, I think, but we also go to matches together and have fun and dress up in orange. This was a match of the women's team, so it was going good, and we had smiles all around. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mathijs. So my question, what is the price for the Pro subscription?
It's €5 per month. And with the €5, you get the full access to everything.
Is there also a bundle to print?
There is a bundle to print, and I don't remember the price because I focus mostly on digital. But we try to keep our subscriptions as simple as possible. So there is print and digital and the combination of those two.
So any other questions? Okay, fangen wir mal der Herr hier vorne.
That's a good question. So the way Magnolia helps us with personalization is not in the way that we use Magnolia to personalize. We have a very strict separation between the content and the tools we use to personalize. One of them is for performance reasons. When you get such high performance spikes, we didn't want to combine it with all these different individual requests being fired on the Magnolia infrastructure. How it helps us is that the content is saved in a structured way. Even in the Stories app, you're really flexible with your content, but it's saved in a way that's very easy to expose. It's very easy to expose all the different tags to it. So how the CMS helps is that the CMS will provide kind of in the source code what we know about that content, or in some cases about that user, and then other tools hook into that and use that to kind of index it. So that's really how it helps. It's mostly for content tagging. Well, there's a lot going on with the content. So first of all, we put a lot of effort in making sure the content is saved in a reusable way, because the website is very traditional. It's just we use Magnolia as a rendering engine there. It's really just a traditional website. Then we use web views in our app. So it's pretty much just also an HTML page, but it's very dressed down, so it doesn't have a header. That goes into the app. And then we have a whole bunch of APIs and RSS feeds to feed our content to third parties. So our content, for example, is syndicated to MSN.nl, and they pick out some articles that they want to publish. And via those, especially via those RSS feeds, we want to move the content to much more third-party platforms. And one thing, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look yet, but we want to do the same with the pro content. So we want to also put all of the pro content into a feed, and we'll just cut it off exactly where the editor puts the paywall in the Stories app.
Jörg?
I'd like to know whether the app does show the same content as the website in the sense of this curated structure that you have.
Yeah.
So this would be like a headless approach, I guess, where you have the same structure both being rendered in HTML through Magnolia as well as being...
Yeah, it's the same. If you look at our app and the website, you'll see the same highlighted articles on both platforms. And on the website, it's just rendered that way, and in the app, it's done via APIs. So the listing pages in our app are fully native, and the app just hooks into our APIs, and it's exactly the same content being presented on both fronts.
Another question?
I'm interested in how you store and get the second information from Facebook. Do you grab it from the Open Graph API and store it at your user database, or how do you handle it?
Actually, we cheated a little bit there because we use another tool for personalization, and they are kind of presenting themselves in the same way as Magnolia as an integration platform. So there's lots of people writing plugins for that platform, and we were really struggling with. We have about 400,000 user accounts, and we were struggling with how are we going to pull in all the Facebook likes and store them in a place where it's also performant. So that was an open backlog item for a long time. And then we found out that that personalization tool has a plugin to pull in all the likes. So we just installed it, figured out if it performs, and it does. So within a day, we had everybody's Facebook likes in the same place where we already have all the user data. So that was a bit of a lucky streak for us.
How do you handle like the performance peaks you were talking about, like when you have like whatever breaking news, if there are like 50 or how many thousand people on the platform?
Well, first we decided to try and handle it with a lot of Magnolia public nodes. That didn't go so well. So we decided to put another layer on top. So it's mostly Nginx now covering that heavy load. And what we're looking at now is how to be a little bit more efficient with our caching process, because we found a bit of a silly thing where every publication we do purges the whole cache, which is a bit rudimentary, but it works because we need to be quick with our content. Like if an editor makes a change, you want to make sure it's updated everywhere. So any publication will flush the whole cache. And we found out that we're doing a publication which is not necessary before we send out a push notification. So there's this whole flood going to an article that hasn't been put into the cache yet. So that's something we're going to fix. But even with that being in place, it's still pretty good. It takes a couple of seconds to open an article, but it doesn't really matter. From the moment an editor pushes the publish button to the moment where everybody, like a couple 100,000 devices, get the push notification, it's roughly 10 to 15 seconds from start to finish. So that's quicker than most of the competing websites. So we're often the first ones sending out the push.
Any other questions? Jörg.
How many public nodes do you use at the moment?
10, but we're going to reduce it drastically. So we have an agreement mostly based on performance. We're not paying for all these machines. We're paying for the platform performing, and then it's up to info.nl to make sure it's as efficient and as cheap for them to run, as long as it meets the performance requirements. So for more details about exactly the architecture, I would say go to Marcel. He knows all about it.
Thank you, Mathijs.
Thank you.
Good luck for 2020. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.